Right, so it is the classic tactical voting refrain that we need to vote a certain way to get the Tories out, isn't it? We get it every single election. You have to vote Labour, we're getting told this time, to get the Tories out. You're a Tory if you don't do that. You're helping the Tories if you attack our dear Saint Keith, the patron saint of kids starving and deceit, and don't vote for the Labour candidate. It is rubbish, it is nonsense, and frankly, if you're trying to sell Starmer's red Tories as a change to the blue Tories of Rishi Sunak, frankly, you are the Tory and not me. But more than ever this time, it isn't true, because the Tories are absolutely done for no matter what, no matter which way you look at it. They look set to be dumped out of power for a generation. We are seeing polling collapses for them, the likes of which we have never seen. A collapse so bad that as a party, they may never recover from it. We are literally having conversations about the end of the Conservative Party. Labour will be the largest party, therefore, come what may in this general election. Keir Starmer, if he doesn't lose to Andrew Feinstein, will be Prime Minister. So if you don't want to vote for Labour, if you don't want to hold your nose and vote for the least worst option this time around, well, you don't have to. Right, so as sure as death and taxes, the minute a general election, any election really, but especially a general election, comes around, out come the tactical voting enthusiasts. Carol Vorderman is doing a stellar turn trying to convince people of this gump at the moment on Twitter. She's everywhere this morning that I've seen. But the constituency calculators, we know who they are, telling you who you should vote for, who you have to vote for in order to get the Tories out. Our first past the post electoral system is garbage. It traps us in never-ending cycles of Tory or Labour, and with nothing ever changing, whichever one of them seems to get in. We need a change from that. We need to break that cycle and end the domination of these establishment interest parties, always ruling in the interest of the rich and not ordinary working class people, the likes of you and I. Well, for years now, we hear the same thing, though. Cuts are necessary here. We have to cut that there. There's no money for this, no money for that, no money for the other. That lot have bankrupted us. And now we have that coming from both Tories and Labour. Why should any of us want to back one or the other of them when neither pledge to change anything, to do anything meaningful, to make the changes necessary for our lives, striving only to keep the wealthy elite and the donor class happy instead? Oh, but you're a Tory if you don't vote Labour, we get told. You're helping the Tories. The Tories will get in again. It's all going to be your fault. That's what we get sneered at, don't we? Bashing Labour, you must be a Tory. It's the least worst option. Just hold your nose and we'll get change. They bleat. All my life I've heard this. 45 years, all I've heard is this rubbish in one form or another. And what has actually ever changed? Absolutely nothing. It is scaremongering. It is frightening people into voting a certain way. It is emotional manipulation. Frankly, it is abuse. It's cognitive dissonance. It is wishing for the biggest, most ludicrous Starmer majority possible, which will just be an absolute tragedy for the country. It is power-hungry bile, it is whataboutism, it is gaslighting. And people doing it need to stop it. 1997 should have been the wake-up call, when Blair betrayed the working classes, and despite a brief blip since, whilst Corbyn was in charge of Labour, nothing ever has changed, no matter which of those two parties was in charge. And that is at its most stark now, with nothing between Starmer and Sunak in any meaningful sense. But one thing has changed. The level of Tory incompetence, stupidity and failure over the last 14 years, the decimation of public services we all rely on, the chronically ill-prepared response to the pandemic is another example, the flat refusal to put ordinary people first with austerity for us but not for the rich, which is essential for any economic prosperity. We, the working classes, we need to be able to spend to make money work. That boosts the economy so it prospers. And the rich need to be taxed properly to give the government proper spending power. Not doing any of this for so long is what has led to the state we're in. Too many years of stagnation. And it has literally killed people. And at last, more and more of the general public, even amongst lifelong Tory voters, have realised this cannot carry on. And the Tory vote share, predictions, polls, they've tumbled. There's no talent there. An offensively out-of-touch multi-millionaire, one of the wealthiest people in the country, has proven he hasn't got a clue of what it takes to actually run the country, raised and educated in a bubble as he was. There's no discernible political talent on any of the Tory benches any longer, and they've abused our sense of democracy by imposing hapless, unelected, mandateless leaders on us like Liz Truss, who still to this day thinks a lefty conspiracy led to her going, and Sunak's uselessness has spoken for itself, obsessed with culture wars rather than doing anything that actually matters to any of our everyday lives, with the icing on the cake being him getting drenched whilst announcing the election itself. Karma. Although polls vary one to another, Labour holds a massive lead in all of them over the Tories. One published the other day had the Tories on just 19%, which would give them just 11 MPs. How glorious a sight would that be? Put them in joint third place as a party with the SNP, and the Lib Dems would end up becoming the official opposition. It's bonkers, but that's just one measure of just how far gone the Tories are. They could be facing annihilation, and not before time. So if Labour have such stonking, enormous leads in all these polls then, well, there's absolutely no need for you to hold your nose and vote for them as well then, is there? They've got enough votes in the bag, clearly. We can vote for who we want then. Clearly enough people already are going to vote Labour, so why do you need to vote the same way? For the first time ever, under our horrible first-past-the-post system, and despite it, we can actually vote for who we want to then. And in fact, it's really important that we actually do that, because neither the Tories or Labour will introduce the electoral reforms needed to get rid of first-past-the-post. Smaller parties hold the power for that, but only if they hold the balance of power can it be achieved. Therefore, for as much as the Tories falling will be delicious, it is going to happen anyway. Enjoy every single minute of that. But at the same time, we need to deny Keir Starmer of a working majority, which would see 5 years of absolute authoritarianism inflicted on us all to a degree I doubt we've ever witnessed. We don't have to have that better of two evils argument this time. If your campaigning consists of nothing but trying to scare people about the Tories, then clearly your party has got nothing meaningful to actually offer, given that you can't stand on a doorstep or have a conversation and tell people about it. And when for many of us at this general election, just as was the case during the local elections earlier this month, the issue of Gaza and Israel inevitably comes up again, there's literally no difference between Labour and the Tories. So if you're standing against genocide, how can you possibly countenance one of these parties over the other? Of course there are smaller parties, and there are smaller parties. Many Tories are going to Reform UK right now, and why wouldn't they, when on one hand it is basically just another Tory party. On another hand, their leader Richard Tice is constantly being platformed on mainstream media at the expense of other smaller parties. And as a third point, they won just a measly 2 councillors in the local elections nationwide because most people do not want them and do not relate to them. If you want the Tories out, why back the next iteration of that party? If the media brainwash you into thinking Tice, a vulture capitalist and another multi-millionaire, is a man of the people, then you deserve what you've got coming. There are independent candidates, however, popping up vying to win a parliamentary seat because of the Tory and Labour dichotomy now, in numbers never before seen, never before possible. The wonders of crowdfunding a local organisation to raise up a candidate from within the ranks of local people. So many of them are popping up now, and to get the attention many of them need, they are winning endorsements from umbrella organisations like the recently declared We Are Collective. There's Leanne Mohammed taking on Wes Streeting, Andrew Feinstein taking on Keir Starmer, Jeremy Corbyn aiming to retain his seat is now officially standing, and so many more all over the country besides, possibly in your constituency, and yet you may not even be aware of them yet. So do look into them, because the best candidates are going to be the ones that the media keep ignoring. Speaking of which, how can I not draw attention to the Green Party, who are always ignored by the media, of course, who in the local elections once again this time around have again taken council seats off of all parties, and it is the one party that is genuinely capable of doing. So if people from all political wings find some common ground, there's something in the Green Party to back, from rotten lefties like me drawn to the social justice policies on housing, renationalisation, not to mention an actual wealth tax that will raise billions that the country sorely needs in order to fix it. The one party set on taxing wealth and not levying more taxes on all of us, as we're already taxed to the hilt. But also where the environmental policies, the pledges to take back our water into public ownership, clean up our countryside, our waterways, and invest in green renewable energy more, that appeals to people from across the political spectrum, with an interest in protecting our planet and all of our natural resources here. And there's another point relevant to the Greens and to the Independents, and this actually applies to Plaid Cymru too, I discovered earlier today. As it happens, there's no such thing as a party whip. So those elected from those bodies, those parties or independents, will be able to vote on behalf of constituents every single time on every single issue, rather than follow the demands of an authoritarian leader. The only true, genuine tactical vote in this general election is a vote against the Tories and Labour, and probably the Lib Dems too. I just cannot bring myself to trust them again still after 2010, but you may feel different. Functionally, your tactical vote needs to also be a progressive vote, though. It needs to come with conditions that are being met, and the three main parties do not meet them, in my mind. The only way this country will be run in our interests going forwards requires the end of first past the post, and the only way we'll see it end is for Labour to be forced into agreeing to it in exchange for supporting a minority Labour administration. If Starmer gets a majority, it will be another 5 years of the same pendulum politics going forwards that we've had for decades. We're all sick of it. We're all sick of careerist politicians who only take notice of us every 5 years when they again need our vote, when their track records show they do not actually deserve them at all. So don't be sucked in by accusations of being a Tory by refusing to back Labour. I left the Labour Party. I have no regrets whatsoever. And anyone accusing me of being a Tory for saying Starmer can swivel for my vote needs to look in the mirror, because I didn't really leave the Labour Party. It left me. I'm much happier as a Green, much happier that I can continue to be, ongoing, a progressive activist and local councillor, and my vote will very much be a Green one, therefore. Let yours be a progressive vote as well. And don't for one moment ever feel guilty, or let someone else make you feel guilty for casting it. Of course, this assumes the election even goes ahead. Will those Tory plotters we've heard a little bit about trying to stop it succeed? I should imagine not, but it made for an interesting little research job for me to see if they actually could, on paper at least, and I covered that in this video recommendation here for you to consider watching next. I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.